Tiphareth is a purple or yellowed armored boss from the final restriction release game mode. Your primary tool to engage with mechanics are going to be shields, and there is going to be a very strong emphasis on cost recovery or anything that can help you cycle, because you will need to spam a lot of AoE skills to properly eliminate every mob that spawns in. This boss follows a very tight script, so the format of this video is going to be a little different from usual. I'll begin by giving a basic outline of the fight from beginning to end. Then I'll fill you in on the details along each step of the script, including any changes you will see as you rise through the floors. And finally, I'll provide some general guidance on team building. If you prefer reading text, I have document guides written by myself linked in the description of this video. Otherwise, welcome to SCHALE Raid Tactics. I'm Kozu, and thank you for coming. Tiphareth is a 5-minute boss battle where each second of the fight will play out almost identically between every attempt you make. For most of the fight, you will be cycling between two distinct modes. The first mode involves your students attacking Tiphareth's main body, which we'll call the heart. During this part of the cycle, you will usually spend your time recovering your health, recuperating your cost, and setting up for the next part of the fight. The second mode involves the cores, which are the little structures around the map, opening up and attacking you. At the same time, a wave of mobs will spawn in. The heart itself becomes resistant to damage, and it gains some attacking abilities to create chaos as you attempt to deal with all the mobs in the cores. This part of the fight is going to be your primary damage window, where you're going to need to unleash all of your abilities in a very short amount of time. After this window ends, the cores will close to gain a damage reducing shield, and the heart will open once again. The raid starts with the heart active. You have a 20-second window before the cores activate and the mobs spawn in which you'll have another 20 seconds to deal with all of the mechanics before the cores close and the heart is active again. This cycle happens a total of 3 times. After the third time, Tiphareth will start phase 2, where you'll go through this cycle 2 more times. During the 5th wave overall, which is the second wave in phase 2, the boss will groggy if you have completed the mechanics correctly. This groggy is a very important DPS window that gives your team extra time to be dealing damage without anything getting in the way. If you don't get this groggy, then you will skip straight to the next part of the fight, which is the escape sequence. Tiphareth will slowly sweep an instant kill laser across the map. Here you will need to destroy the barricades blocking your students to escape certain death. If you clear all the barricades and are successful in getting your team to escape, you will enter the final stretch of the raid. Tiphareth will once again enter groggy, and in these last moments, you will do as much damage as you can to kill it before the timer runs out. Mobs will spawn in as you try to do so, and the raid will end with you defeating Tiphareth or the timer running out. That covers all 5 minutes of the raid. Outlining it like this, it might not seem like too much to handle. After breaking down the details to you, I hope it stays that way. The reality is, each wave can be quite intense in all of the things you need to do in a very short amount of time. So next up will be the details on how to guide your students through the chaos. The beginning of every wave is signaled by the summoning of mobs, around 2 out of 3 cores. The cores with mobs are the ones that will activate and attack you. The mobs themselves aren't a threat to your team, but each mob you kill will deal true damage to Tiphareth equal to 1% of its max HP, and the groggy gauge will increase. It is very important you kill every single mob, because the raid's HP is balanced around you being able to kill most, if not all, the mobs. There are a total of 48 mobs spawned during the 5 waves in the raid, which means 48% of the damage you deal to Tiphareth will come from killing mobs. An AoE damage dealer will contribute as much to the raid as single target dealers. It is critical to have one. Your most important priority will be trying to kill every mob, but Tiphareth is not going to let you do that without a fight. While you're trying to kill the mobs, the active cores will attack you. Each core, left, middle, right, has different abilities. The left core will shield itself and the mobs around it. It will then launch a bomb at the striker with the shortest auto attack range. If you don't do anything, this bomb will explode and deal damage to your students. If instead you deliver the bomb to a core by moving the targeted student, it will explode on the core without dealing damage to your students. Delivering the bomb back to the left core will disable its shield and damage it, while sending the bomb to any other core will simply damage it. Worth noting that if you choose to send the bomb to another core, the left core's shield will eventually expire on its own. The middle core will charge up a microwave beam and then fire that beam towards the striker with the shortest auto attack range. This microwave will deal damage to all students in range and continuously knock them back. The microwave can also hurt the cores in the mobs. The right core launches missiles at each of your students. If your students are not protected by a shield, the missiles will explode and deal significant damage. If your students are protected, then the missiles will be reflected back to the right core and hurt itself. Each missile reflected will also increase the groggy gauge. Each core shares HP with Tiphareth itself. Whenever damage is dealt to a core, Tiphareth's main body will also lose HP. And then, while all of the above chaos is happening, Tiphareth itself will be assaulting you. Sometimes it will shoot plasma balls that will inflict a heal debuff to unshielded students. It also has a missile rain which does enhanced damage to unshielded students. All of that happens in a very short 20 seconds. If you were to individually react to each of these mechanics, it could get overwhelming very quickly, and it's likely you'll be completely ripped apart. Instead, I'm going to make the recommendation to make the same set of actions every wave. By doing the same thing every wave, regardless of what's happening on your screen, the process becomes simplified and the boss much more approachable. So, we will make a checklist. You will do everything on this checklist every wave. First, shield your team as the wave begins. This will protect your team from lethal damage, and you satisfy the right core's mechanics if they happen. Then, send a striker with the shortest range to the left or right core. This striker will need to have their own repositioning ability to do this. The recommended order for whether you send a striker left or right is right, right, left, right, right for each wave respectively. That is, on the first wave you send a striker right, on the second wave right, on the third wave left, and on both waves in phase 2 you send a striker right. This technically doesn't matter for floors 1 through 24, but you may as well make a habit of it now because this will be very important for higher floors. After shielding your team and repositioning the target striker, you need to focus everything into killing every single mob. Leave nothing alive. Once the mobs are dead, you can spend any spare cost on attacking the cores. Be careful of timing though. Doing it for too long or engaging too late can result in you attacking the core after it gets its shield up. If you don't have time to attack the cores, then that's fine too. It's good to attack the cores, but if you need to save your cost and recover some health for the next cycle, then you'll want to prioritize that instead. So, once again, the checklist goes: shield the team, reposition your striker left or right, kill the mobs, and attack the cores. Do these every single wave and you should be fine. If you need to, don't be afraid to hover over a skill to enable slow motion. There is a lot going on, and I'm sure you'll definitely appreciate the bullet time to think about what skills you need to use next. When the wave ends, the hut will open up again. The phase starts with all of your students being vacuumed into the middle of the map to prevent weird pathing. As that happens, each mob that remains will self-destruct and heal Tiphareth for 1% of its max HP. So if it wasn't obvious killing the mobs was important before, you really need to kill the mobs just to make sure your progress isn't being undone. Tiphareth during this part of the cycle will gain a 100% attack buff and continue to assault you with missile rain. Despite the attack buff, its attacks aren't too much of a threat. This period of time is more relaxed, and whether you utilize this time as a DPS phase or recovery phase is up to you. In general, it's recommended to prioritize recovery because your team is definitely going to be hurt after the chaos of the previous wave. If you have extra cost, then feel free to spend it damaging the heart. You don't want to overcommit though, because you will need the cost for the next cycle. After 20 seconds, the next wave starts and you will repeat everything once again. You will do 3 waves in phase 1, after which phase 2 will start. The beginning of phase 2 is basically the same as phase 1, but taken up 1 extra level. Tiphareth gains buffs that make its attacks even stronger, putting additional pressure on your team. Each wave will have 3 active cores and 12 mobs. The checklist still applies. Shield your team, reposition your striker, and kill the mobs. What you're going to feel, however, is executing your rotation to successfully kill 12 mobs is going to be much more difficult and intense. The 4th wave is going to be your toughest wave. Before this wave starts, I recommend not attacking the heart and instead to save as much cost as you can. If you have abilities which help save cost or improve your rotation, you can also set them up in advance to give you the much needed advantage. Another tip is to open the wave immediately with your AoE dealer and then instantly shield right after. By using your AoE first, it means they will show up again earlier as you cycle through your cards. This wave lasts 20 seconds like any other wave, but it will not be unusual if you actually spend 1 real life minute in slow motion to keep everything under control. Unlike in phase 1, you're definitely not going to have any time to deal extra damage to the cores. Invest everything you can into killing all 12 mobs. Now, if you've done everything correctly until now, the 5th and final wave is actually the easiest wave. It will start the same way. All 3 cores activate and 12 mobs will spawn. What's different is the groggy gauge should be very close to full. If it is at least touching the first box in the ATG, then you have enough groggy gauge to only need to eliminate half the wave. As usual, shield your students and send the bomb right this time. If your groggy gauge is almost completely full, this alone will groggy Tiphareth and end the wave early. When the wave ends early, the mobs will self-destruct and deal their respective true damage to Tiphareth. If your groggy bar is on the lower end of the ATG, you might need to kill 1 or 2 groups of mobs. Nonetheless, you won't need to kill all 3 groups to end the wave. If your groggy gauge is too low and you find yourself having to kill all 3 groups to get groggy, or you fail to get groggy at all, that means you've leaked too many mobs, or you failed to perform the mechanics properly until this point. In this case, it's unlikely you will have enough damage to finish off Tiphareth in the time remaining. The groggy itself is extremely important. When groggy, Tiphareth will receive 2 stacks of extra damage taken debuffs. One stack is a 100% increased damage taken debuff for the duration of the groggy. The other stack is a permanent 50% damage taken debuff until the end of the battle. Totaling 150% extra damage taken, this is a massive damage window you will need for your single target dealer to remove as much HP as possible from the boss. To miss groggy means you will fall behind on damage in 2 ways. Firstly, missing groggy means you let too many mobs leak and the boss has healed a significant amount of HP. Secondly, 150% extra damage is a lot of damage. The boss's HP is balanced around the fact that you will activate this groggy for the extra damage. So do everything you can to achieve it, and once you have, use every single ability possible to grind out as much HP as your students allow. To help with your burst, all your strikers will gain 1000 cost recovery buff. In a team of 6 strikers, this is an additional 0.6 cost per second. On paper, this might sound like a small number. In practice, your cost bar is going to zoom. Don't be afraid to use abilities, even if they're useless. Just move the skills along because you're going to have this cost buff for the rest of the battle. Then, once Tiphareth recovers, the escape sequence starts. Getting out of this is fairly simple. Just use everything you can to remove the barricades in the way. The cost buff here is very strong, so feel free to continue using random skills just to rotate back to your AoE as soon as possible. Play the game on 1x speed if you have to. The bare minimum requirement is to simply outrun the beam. However, there is room for optimization here. The earlier you end this escape sequence, the earlier the next damage window starts. If you can not only rotate through your skills really quickly, but balance your AoE in proper order or configurations, you'll be rewarded with a longer final damage window. With the final barricade behind you, you will enter the home stretch of the raid. Tiphareth, exhausted by the energy beam, will be groggy once again. This time, the boss will have a total of 3 stacks of increased damage taken debuff. One stack is the 50% applied from the previous groggy, then the other 2 stacks come from this groggy, 50% and 100%, totaling 200% for the remainder of the battle. If you didn't trigger the previous groggy, then you'd have 2 stacks totaling 150%. What you need to do is fairly obvious. Kill the boss. There is no more damage threat to your team. Use every single offensive ability you can to crunch through the final stretch of Tiphareth's HP. Obviously, you'll be focusing most of your attention on your single target dealer. Your AoE dealer, however, still has a role to play. 6 final mobs will spawn, and killing these will also contribute 1% of Tiphareth's HP. Chances are, killing these mobs will be worth as much damage as your single target dealer, so don't neglect your AoE dealer during this window. Otherwise, go hard and don't stop. The raid ends with you killing the boss or you timing out here. Do everything you can to finish the fight. That covers all of the important details along every step of the script. This fight is intense and has a lot of concentrated moments of action. The raid timer is 5 minutes long, but with how much you'll be needing to slow down the raid, you could be spending 10 real minutes each attempt. That said, it is a structured 10 minutes. As long as you go through the checklist each wave, shield, reposition, kill the mobs, then take your time to recover between waves, you will manage. With some practice, you will learn the dance and understand the rhythm of the raid. What I've gone through so far are only the base mechanics from floors 1 through 24. There are additional details as you progress to higher floors, but the rhythm, the checklist, these won't change. With that sorted, let's actually move on and see what is added on higher floors. In section 2, from floors 25 to 49, the cores will gain an additional vulnerability you can exploit in the middle of the wave. If you successfully reflect 2 attacks to the same core and then attack it, it will receive a 100% increased damage taken debuff. Remember the order I recommended for your reposition? Right, right, left, right, right? That is the direction you need to send your striker each wave to successfully activate this debuff. For example, sending your striker right on the second wave will cause the microwave and the missiles to damage the right core. Attacking the core afterwards will trigger the extra damage. For this section onwards, you'll need to take advantage of this debuff on the cores because firstly, the heart has no such debuff, and secondly, the boss's HP will be balanced to account for this extra damage you will deal. So, at the end of the usual checklist, the task to attack the cores, which was previously optional, is now a lot less optional. In section 3, from floors 50 to 74, Tiphareth will have piercing, or yellow, attack. Yellowed armored students become almost unusable unless you have very powerful shields. Even then, it will be difficult to keep them alive because you will have to constantly reapply the shield and keep an eye on them throughout the 5-minute raid. No doubt this is mechanically intensive and exhausting. Red armored students will have the easiest time and are generally able to survive with simple healing support outside of the usual shield mechanics. Tiphareth also gains a new attack in this section. In phase 2, between waves, it will fire an explosive beam that removes shields from your team and then deals damage. Its purpose is to slow down your recoveries and put additional pressure on your team between waves. You can't really do anything about it, just make sure you continue to keep your team as healthy as you can. In section 4, from floors 75 to 99, the first groggy after the 5th wave behaves slightly differently. 8 drones will spawn, each drone providing Tiphareth a 10% damage reduction buff. Killing one drone will remove one stack of the buff. The best way to make sure you're ready for these drones is by triggering Groggy with minimal use of AoE in the final wave. Preferably you don't use any AoE at all. Remember that this is done by engaging with the mechanics correctly up until this point, and if successful, you can redirect the cost you might have used to deal with the wave into disposing of these drones instead. Obviously, don't try to attack the heart while the drones are alive. The damage reduction is very significant and the boss's HP is balanced around properly killing each drone. Everything else behaves the same way, so once the drones are gone, go ahead and dump all the damage you can as you would have in lower floors. In section 5, floors 100 and above, Tiphareth's missile rain does even more damage against unshielded students. This is an extra multiplier on top of the existing multiplier on unshielded students. Nothing else in the raid changes, but you will notice the increased pressure on your team to stay alive, so you'll need good healers and consistent shield usage throughout the raid. It is at this floor any students with yellow or blue armor types become nearly impossible to use. That is all for the upgrades, so now let's move on to the team building. Something important to keep in mind as you watch this team building section is that as a live service gacha game, it's inevitable that the most recommended students will change as new ones are released. What will not change, however, are the core principles behind building the team. I strongly advise paying attention to the roles you have to fill out on the team rather than the students themselves. With that said, you should bring at the minimum at least one AoE dealer, at least one single target dealer, a team shielder, a healer, and a short-range striker who can self-reposition. Your AoE dealer is the most important student on the team. They will be contributing more than half of the boss's HP in damage, and they are crucial to filling the groggy. You will want to look out for the AoE dealers who might also be quite competent at single target damage. These will be students who have attack speed buffs or have high crit multipliers. AoE dealers who refund cost or help with cost regeneration are also very effective in keeping themselves in the rotation to handle the mobs. The single target dealer will be responsible for the other half of Tiphareth's HP. They don't play any role besides pure damage, so simply choose the strongest one you have. Shields are going to be compulsory for not just survival, but completing the mechanics to feel groggy. When choosing which shields to use, be mindful of any targeting limits the shield might have. For example, Track Yuka can shield a maximum of 4 students. So if you were to use Track Yuka on your team, you will need to play around 2 members of your team being left unshielded. With this in mind, it is actually viable to reduce the number of students you deploy if it means you can shield everyone. This is because anyone who isn't shielded is practically dead, especially in higher floors. If you choose to do this, you will need to consider 2 side effects. Fewer students means you can rotate to your crucial AoE dealer faster. This is a good thing. Also means, however, you will have lower cost regeneration and, well, less effective kits to take advantage of. It's a trade-off you will need to experiment with, but generally speaking, if you will have an easier time managing fewer students, consider this as a good option. A healer is going to be mandatory as well. Tiphareth's attacks hurt. You'll be continuously healing your team throughout the whole raid. Of course, AoE healing is the most effective because the entirety of Tiphareth's attacks are AoE. Finally, the short-range unit who can reposition themselves is likely going to be your tank. There are 2 things you'll need to check for when choosing this unit. Firstly, check that they are actually the shortest range on your team. You can check the range of your students by going to the sorting options in the Team Select menu, or by going into the extra detail menu in the student info screen. Secondly, they need to have enough range to reach the left or right cores from the middle of the map. This narrows down the pool of eligible students to a very small number. You might be able to try using abilities which move other students. This would just be very difficult because single target repositions like Serena always attract the closest student to her package, and this might not be the targeted student. AoE repositions are also not ideal because you'll just cook your entire team in the microwave. At the end of the day, you're probably going to need the self-repositioning character. With the minimum requirements fulfilled, the rest of the team can consist of any supports you see fit. Damage buffs are of course valuable to chew through Tiphareth's enormous HP pool, but you would also definitely want students who can help with cost or help you select crucial abilities faster. After all, there's a lot of abilities you need to use in the short 20-second cycle of each wave, so anything that makes that easier is going to be very valuable. From floor 50 onwards, you'll be reducing your pool to students with red armor. It is possible to use yellow or blue armored students, but you will be babysitting them, reapplying shield after shield in the hopes they don't die. It's not impossible, but it is very mechanically intensive. If you don't mind the challenge, then go right ahead, but the normal, sane way to proceed will be with red armor. That concludes the team building. Something you might want to consider as an afterthought is checking which of your AoE dealers have the best shapes for the escape sequence. Some characters have very optimal shapes, while others may need to use their skills twice to clear the same set of blocks. This is just an afterthought though. It's definitely far more important to pick students who can easily dispose of the mobs because that's where your damage is. And with that, we are done with the Tiphareth raid guide. Just like the other final restriction release bosses, there is a lot of detail. But if you can simply remember the checklist, shield the team, right, right, left, right, right, kill the mobs, attack the cores, that basically summarizes the entire raid. And yet, I've only covered what to do. How you're going to execute on that plan will require a lot of practice, and that is unfortunately not something we can cover on video. My best advice is to iterate. This boss is scripted from beginning to end. If you do the same thing every time, you will get the same results every time. So honestly, grab some pen and paper and make notes on what skills to use in what order. If you can figure out the correct order for your skills for even just the first wave, you can copy that order and apply it to each wave after. The way I see it, Tiphareth is an endurance test. Can you get your execution correct every step of the way without slipping up? Arguably, you could apply this to every boss in the game. What sets Tiphareth apart is that you're using far more skills in short, intense bursts that happen every 20 seconds, resulting in way higher skill usage overall compared to every other raid. These bursts are what define Tiphareth. It's not necessarily complex, it's just very intense. Luckily, we do have a very handy slow motion feature. You will be using it a lot this raid. Sincerely, I wish you good luck and to have fun.